As you can see, and as you can imagine, that entire area completely blocked off by fire and police, especially as they are still assessing the situation right now. That being what fire was responding to and showing up to is the fact that the plane just burst into flames when it hit the ground.
A pretty big response there from first responders, and it looks like based off the picture we're seeing now, again, this is from a viewer shortly after that plane crash, to that live shot that we just saw there from Steve. It doesn't look like the truck has moved very far, or if at all. We want to actually talk to Steve right now. Again, he is at the scene of where this plane crash happened at the intersection of Oberon and Carr. Steve, what are you seeing right now?
Jordan, I'm going to step out of the way so you can look further down Oberon here. But to give you an idea, we're right next to the train tracks that run through Arvada. So there's actually a freight train kind of rolling by right now, and just kind of on this frontage road that runs along the train track is Oberon, and you can see some of the damage down there next to those fire trucks where police are investigating. Now, we're gonna get moved here in a moment because police are expanding this crime scene now. In fact, I just talked to a Jeffco sheriff deputy who says that the NTSB is gonna want a lot of this area closed because they're gonna try to figure out where the actual impact for this plane happened. Like if it didn't, I'm getting the impression it didn't quite just kind of come out of the sky and land right where it was there. I think there might have been some kind of motion beforehand. In fact, I see little cones that are kind of evidence markers all over the sidewalk here. You can kind of see them in the foreground leading up to that wing that's sticking up in the air. And there's one even right here. So I'm wondering if the plane may have kind of clipped. It's speculation now. We don't know how this plane came down, but I get the impression from Jeffco deputies that they want a bigger area closed off just in case the NTSB wants to investigate it. And they're going to look at, even in this home right next to us here, you see a piece of an evergreen tree on the ground here and more kind of clippings in this yard. And so I think that's why they're expanding this scene and going to ask us in a moment, as the train goes by, they're going to ask us in a moment to step away. But we wanted to give you a look from this vantage point down Oberon, and that's Carr is the intersection right there. And you can see the debris of that crash and some firefighters walking around. Now they've moved everyone who was kind of initially around this scene to the other side of the railroad tracks. But guys, we're going to have to kind of move here in a moment. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what this looks like before we get moved out of here.
All right. We really appreciate Steve for giving us our first live look at that. I don't know if you have a second to answer this, but one of the witnesses just told us it looked like the plane was trying to land on that street behind you versus in the house. Can you just give us a quick scene setter? I mean, is this all residential? Is it a narrow road? Look, what is the situation?
Okay, we're getting kicked out of here, guys. I can answer that as we're moving. Anna, if you want to, as we move the camera, I can answer your question, Anusha, because I do think that it appears that there was some sort of motion here down Oberon as I lift the tape here so Anna can get on the other side of the crime scene tape. They've expanded this since we got here. They've made this scene larger. And I think it's because they're investigating this crash kind of going down Oberon and trying to figure out if maybe indeed the plane was trying to kind of land along this very narrow strip. But on one side of the railroad tracks is a neighborhood, and then you've got railroad tracks and then another neighborhood. So it's a relatively narrow area here that police are investigating right now.
All right, Steve, we will let you go because we know you're getting moved around. We really appreciate him taking the time to answer some of our questions. Again, the latest that we have, 2 adults and 2 kids who had to be taken to the hospital because of that small plane crashing into that neighborhood in Arvada. Again, that is off of Oberon and Carr, a primarily residential area of Arvada.
Yeah, and for anybody that's just now joining us, walking you through some of the details, again, this is a small plane that crashed into this area. We spoke with a man named Dan who witnessed this plane coming down. He said it was coming down very fast. Looked like it was flying from east to west, trying to avoid homes. Looked like it was trying to land on Oberon Road and avoid cars. We know that he said he saw that plane hit this red truck that you're seeing in this photo right here, and the plane caught fire. We don't know if the truck actually caught fire as well. That's one of the questions that we are trying to get answered right now. This is also a live look from our Lauren Scafidi, who is also on the scene right now. This is kind of showing you just a little bit of a different vantage point of the crime scene. Again, from what we just heard from Steve Steger, it sounds like the NTSB and investigators have expanded that crime scene now because they're trying to learn where the initial impact of this plane first hit and then eventually making its way to what looks like somebody's front yard.
Yeah, and it makes sense, and it's fitting with what a lot of what our witness Dan had just shared with us on air, is that when he saw that plane coming down, of course at first he was trying to figure out what was going on, then he noticed that small plane was getting bigger and bigger, and he realized something bad was about to happen. He said the pilot was really trying hard to avoid, it seemed like he was trying to avoid the houses and all of the people nearby, and was trying to land on Oberon Road, but didn't quite make it. And then, as you can tell from these pictures, that plane ended up crashing in the front yard. And what Steve was just telling us is that he was being moved as he was live on TV because NTSB, multiple agencies are on scene right now. They're actually expanding the area that they are shutting down as they just start this investigation that is going to include that stretch of Oberon in front of those houses that you see in this photo now.
And as Steve was talking, we saw a train passing right by him. So this is very close to tracks as well. So not only did this pilot have to navigate, potential traffic or hitting the homes, he had to also be careful of potentially landing on those tracks or going into a situation where they could make impact with the train that was coming through the area.
And based off of Steve's live shot, it doesn't look like a particularly big road either, and that the pilot was trying to do their best to avoid as much damage and injuries as possible. Unfortunately, though, we're now being told that 2 adults and 2 kids had to be taken to the hospital after this plane crashed. Arvada Fire, one of the lead agencies on the scene, NTSB will be there as well. We've also reached out to the surrounding airports and FAA. We're just waiting to hear back. It's going to be a bit before we start to piece together exactly what happened.
And a note on the 4 people who were taken to the hospital, we should note that we do not know the extent of their injuries at this time. We are working to learn that as well. Again, this is all at the intersection near Oberon Road and Carr Street. For anybody familiar with this part of Arvada, this is about a mile east of Fitzsimmons Rec Center. The area, again, looks to be mostly, if not all, residential. So not that you ever expect to see a plane on any kind of road, but especially scary to see it hit so close to homes. Again, Dan was saying that it wasn't particularly busy in this area, so it definitely didn't have as much traffic to avoid at that time. But of course, we do know it did hit that red truck, which is pictured right here, and then it caught fire. We also know that Arvada Fire put out these flames very quickly. They also have posted new photos showing the plane and the wreckage. And again, from what we saw from Steve's camera, that wreckage has been spread pretty far along Oberon Road.
Yeah, we have Lauren Scafidi now, who just got to the scene as well. She's going to be joining us live. And Lauren, just give us a scene center. Where exactly are you? How close are you to the crash scene? What are you seeing?
Yeah, this is about as close as we can get right now. And usually you can see that the crash landed right by in this yard of this red brick home back here. I just talked to Arvada Fire. They tell me that the plane was flying from east to west as it started coming down. Now, there were people inside of that house, but nobody was hurt. The only people that were hurt were the people in the plane. That's 4 people, 2 adults, 2 kids. So we will update you as soon as we learn more information. Like I said, I just talked to Arvada Fire, and they said that we will be able to get a little bit closer as soon as fire crews can make sure that all of the flames are out. But that's their biggest concern right now, is just making sure that that fire is out. And then as soon as we can, we'll get a little bit closer to bring you a better picture.
And Lauren, just really quickly, I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. All 4 people, again, 2 adults.
I can't hear anything anymore, so I'm not sure if you're talking back to me. But yeah, we'll bring you a little update here and as soon as we can.
All right, sounds good. We'll check back in with Lauren here in a little bit. What I was asking was, we want to know if all 4 people, again, that's 2 adults and 2 kids that were taken to the hospital, if all 4 of them were on that plane.
Yeah, so it sounds like with Arvada Fire, she just had a conversation with them, was that there were people inside that home that they appear to be okay. We know that 4 people were taken to the hospital, the 2 adults and the 2 kids. We'll make sure to get clarification, but it sounds like they were make sure that they were on the plane or not. We'll get clarification on that. As you can imagine, everyone in that area has now been cleared out. All of the folks, all the that you see in that picture, everybody's kind of been cleared out of the area. You know, Dan, who was one of the witnesses, said that, you know, when he was driving by and he saw what happened, a bunch of people did jump out of their cars or come out to try and help out as much as possible. We will continue to follow, especially as these details are just starting to come in right now, again, as the small plane has crashed in an Arvada neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep you updated on the latest of the networks of 9 News and on 9news.com. Right now, we're going to return you to regular programming.